boys and girls.
Good morning.
Okay, this morning we're going to read The Biggest Apple Ever by Stephen Crawl, illustrated by Jenny Bassett. The Biggest Apple Ever by Stephen Crawl, illustrated by Jenny Bassett. And what I'll do is I'll read it to you. I'll read it and then I'll turn it to you. Okay? Once upon a time, there were two mice who fell in love with the same apple pie. But you had to be there to see what happened. What do you think happened?
They got in.
I don't know. Let's see. On opening day at Mouseville School, the principal, Mr. Mouser, made an announcement. We will be learning about apples this fall. And to get things started, we will have a contest. Whoever brings in the biggest apple to his teacher will win a special prize. The judging will take place on Friday. Good luck to everyone. What prize you think they was gonna get?
A cheese.
A cheese? A piece of cheese? Why do you think a piece of cheese?
A big pie.
I don't know. We'll see. It might be
George's trophy.
It might be. It might be a trophy. It might be a piece of cheese. I don't know.
I think we'll finish it.
We got this. I have an apple tree in my backyard, said Penelope. I bet it has really big apples. There's an apple tree across from my house, said James. I'm going to climb it as soon as I get home. I don't have any apple trees, says Clayton, the house mouse. But I'm going to find Mrs. Mousley the biggest apple ever. No, you're not, said his friend Desmond, the field mouse. I am. Oh, yeah, said Clayton. Yeah, said Desmond. Where do you think he's going to get the apple from?
I guess he's going to grow it.
He might. He might. All the way home on the school bus, Clayton and Desmond talked about the contest. Maybe I could grow an apple tree with really big apples, says Clayton. It takes too long, says Desmond. I heard Mrs. Mouse say 6 years. I'll think of something, said Clayton. So will I, said Desmond. So what do you think? What do you think they're going to do?
I think they're going to win a trophy.
They might win a trophy. I don't know. We got to see to read. We got to read to see. When Clayton got off the bus, he sneaked back into town to see what Penelope and James were up to. Penelope had come down from her tree. She was carrying 2 tiny apples. James was still up in the tree across the street. He was picking very small apples. Clayton knew he'd seen bigger ones at the market. When Desmond came by a little later, he realized the same thing. So if they know there's bigger apples at the market, where do you think they're going to go?
To the market.
They might go to the market to pick some up. The next day at school, Penelope and James brought in their apples. No one else had brought in anything. Mrs. Mousley cleared her throat. Class, we're going to have a lot of work to start the year. But because we're learning about apples and having an apple contest, we will go to Barnaby's orchard this afternoon. Everyone got very excited. I'm going to find a winning apple, said Clayton. I'm going to find the winning apple, said Desmond. Do y'all know what an orchard is?
No. It's where you get apples.
You might get apples. It's like a farm with trees.
Whoa. It has a lot of
It does.
Those trees are called apple trees.
At the orchard, Mrs. Mousley pointed out different kinds of apples. Then everyone disappeared into the trees, looking for a winner. Clayton walked down one row, craning his neck. Desmond walked down another row, craning his neck too. Then Clayton saw what he thought was a really big apple. It was a little too high to reach, but he stretched for it. At that moment, Desmond saw the very same apple on the same branch. He stretched for it too. They bumped heads and fell down. I think we should bring this apple in together, said Clayton. No one said we couldn't, said Desmond. But when they got back to the bus, James had an apple that was even bigger. The apple was so big he could barely carry it. Clayton and Desmond looked at each other. What would they do now? See, this is James right here. He has a a big apple, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. That night at dinner, Clayton explained the problem to his dad. Said Dad, apples don't come in too many sizes. Do you think you'll find a bigger one? I don't know, said Clayton. Then maybe James will win the prize this time. It's okay if he does. Over at Desmond's house, Uncle Vernon said the exact same thing. So do you think James is gonna win?
I want Clayton to win.
But Clayton and Desmond were still determined. The next afternoon, they met at Barnaby's orchard. They picked 2 huge baskets of apples, but nothing they found was bigger than the apple James had picked. You know, Clayton said, I think Dad was right. This time James gets to win. But we got all those apples. Why don't we make a big apple pie? Desmond laughed. Great, let's make the biggest apple pie ever, and we'll make it for our class. Clayton nodded, and I think I know where we'll find a pie pan that's big enough. Where do you think they will find a pie pan that is big enough?
I guess you go find a big giant one.
Yeah, but where do you think they're going?
We'll
see. The following afternoon, Desmond arrived at Clayton's house with Uncle Vernon. Everything's packed up and ready, Clayton said. It's all in Dad's truck. But where are we going? Desmond asked. You'll find out in a minute. Dad drove with Clayton and Desmond beside him in the front seat. Uncle Vernon stayed in the back with the apples and the other ingredients for the giant pie. As they came around, Desmond gasped. Tony's Pizza? Of course, said Clayton. What could be better than a big, giant pizza pan?
I know. Pizza.
Yeah, they're going to the pizza place because they usually call it.
Yeah, me and my mommy ate pizza last night.
Oh, nice. Mr. Tony greeted them out at the door. Welcome, welcome. We are ready to begin. And so they got to work, making the dough for the crust, kneading it, rolling it half into a long big circle, and spreading it over the deep dish pan. Then everyone peeled and sliced the apples, mixed together the sugar and spices, and spread out the rest of the dough on top. Wow, said Clayton and Desmond when they were finished. Wow, wow, wow. An hour, said Mr. Tony. Give me an hour. The giant pan just fit into his huge oven. The next day was Friday. Who would have the largest apple? James, of course. And Mr. Mouser handed him the prize. A cheddar cheese apple. You were right, it had cheese. Why? Because they're nice. They eat cheese, supposedly. Mrs. Mousley looked surprised. Clayton? Desmond? Nothing from you? The two of them grinned. At the same moment, the classroom door flew open. In came Clayton's dad, Uncle Vernon, and Mr. Tony, struggling to carry the giant pie by themselves. Do you think that pie was heavy?
Yes.
Yes?
Because it's so big.
It is big. How wonderful, said Mrs. Mousley. That's the biggest apple pie ever. We made it for the whole class, said Clayton. All of us together, said Desmond. They shared a high five, and everyone in their class had a very big slice. The end.